You are listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise, and federally certified veteran-owned small business. I'm your host, Robert Bain, along with our producer, Chris Spangle. Our podcast is featured on the All Indiana Podcast Network in partnership with Wish TV. You may find Leaders and Legends at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. Thinking of starting a podcast or need to host a public meeting? Let Leaders and Legends, LLC be your partner as you look for new ways to communicate your message. Please contact us at chris@leadersandlegends.net. As always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister. The All Indiana Podcast Network is part of Circle City Broadcasting, which has 1.5 million social media followers, which means I hope 1.5 million people buy the book we're going to discuss for a few minutes today. But it's nice to have a long-time friend. We've never really argued, have we? Like on TV or anything?
No, we appeared together and couldn't find anything to argue about. We were too nice to each other.
That's because, to me, you're Mr. Amy Levander. And I don't want to get in trouble with Ms. Amy Levander.
Yeah, crossing her is different than crossing me, that's for sure.
Michael Leppert has been around for a while, especially here in our political scene, but he's done so much more than that. He is an author. He is a professor at the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. He has a novel out. He worked in government affairs, and maybe we'll argue a bit today. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I need to say before anything else, of course, I love Amy Levander.
Sure.
And not because I'm scared of her, just because she's wonderful. And I also love Kelly Bailey Young, who apparently does some PR for you.
Yes.
And
new friend of mine. You know her better than I do. We're new.
She's
great.
Terrific.
Yeah.
And I'm glad she reached out. There was a CNBC ranking. It was just released. And it had the worst states in which to live. I don't know if you've seen this.
Did see it.
Because I know you are a big-time reader as well. I think Indiana was third worst, fourth worst?
Third. Yeah.
You love Indiana.
Yep.
So if I paid you a certain amount of money to rebut that argument, that ranking, how would you do it?
Ooh, good question. I would probably start inside and work my way out. I would talk about where I live. I don't live very far from where you live. It's up the road. You would call yourself a South Sider, and I live in a neighborhood called the Old North Side, but we could walk to each other's houses. And I've lived in Indianapolis for 30, 35 years now, and I'm not sure that I would live anywhere else. It's difficult for me to envision living in any other city. And so for me, when I think of Indiana, I first think of my neighborhood, and then I think of the neighborhoods that border it, and then I think of all the people that are in town that I've come to know over time. And that's I'll talk about that a lot tonight and today with you, is that I define places, whether I like them or love them, based on the people who are there. And so the people is what defines Indiana for me. The people I'm most familiar with are the ones that are closest to me in proximity, that I spend the most time with. And so the people that I'm around are lovely people. And so I look at those lists and I think, I don't know what your ranking system is, but you don't know my Starbucks barista. You don't know the person I see at the gym that we both share every day, Andy, our mutual friend there. So that's what I would start with. I think that people see Indiana and they generalize it. All the bad things float up onto this list. When I see a CNBC story saying that our policymakers are very proud of the business climate here in Indiana, and this ranking, I think, was using some negative business climate thing. I don't really understand how they got that so wrong, but that's what I would do. I would start with the people and the experiences I have face to face, and try to explain to people, you want to be around good people, they're here.
Well, this actually leads me to one of the questions I was going to ask later in the podcast, but I want to push it up to the beginning, and that is, where would you be professionally and personally without KIP 2? I could say romantically, but I don't want to make assumptions.
Well, we did just vacation with the twos, and we left him out there, so that should say something. We came back without him. That's one thing.
He told me he was going to be there for a month. Is he extended?
Not all of us have a month, to just go hang around on the Oregon coast. But my recommendation is, if you do have a month, that's a good place to kill it.
And if you do have a chance to be Kip 2's friend, take it. He's one of my.
It's worked out great for us.
He is one of my favorites, for sure. But you mentioned friends. We both worked in politics on opposite sides of the aisle. Sometimes we meet in the middle. How important is it to you, or has it been to you in your career, to maintain that friendship with someone on the other side of the aisle? Not just because a lot of times on this podcast, we've heard you got Louis Mahern and John Mutz came on. And Louis Mahern told the story of, like, you look, the Democrats were in the super minority. This is, of course, in the 1970s. Find a Republican you can work with, get stuff done. Right. And he and John Mutz found each other. So much in the same situation now. How important is it to you not just to have a sort of a transactional friendship with Republicans or conservatives, but to have a true or genuine one?
Well, if you took away the labels, I would say, and my students hear me say this all the time, and I'm developing a course on this as well, that once you can no longer have conversations with people, then progress stops. It doesn't even matter who's in charge, who's in the majority or the super minority that we've seen so much of in lots of states, Indiana, of course. But being able to have a conversation with someone, with anyone, is so incredibly valued just to our well-being as a species. That would be the first thing that I would say. When the ability to have a conversation is over or doesn't exist anymore, we're in a bad spot. And so being someone who's left of center on the political spectrum, and I've been that my entire career in Indiana, hasn't always been such a super minority sort of situation. And in Indianapolis, I'm not in the super minority.
Correct.
In the neighborhood I was talking about earlier, I blend. But, that's, 2 miles away from there, and I'm in a different sort of...
Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app, bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecast, radar, and Indiana sports, all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere.
Set a group of people. I've found that the best conversations that I've had really in life aren't with people that I agree with. It's people that I probably disagree with, and we can spend time learning each other's perspectives in that process. And so just feeling well and living well, you need to be able to communicate with other people. And so shutting that off, I think, is a huge mistake and a huge source of tension and failure that's unproductive.
You are listening to the Leaders and Legends podcast. We're talking with author and political pundit. Still?
No.
Are you done punditing?
I'm done. I quit let me see, when did I quit? I quit in August. It's almost been a year. It's been 11 months ago. Yeah. In the last year, I quit doing punditry work.
Recovering political pundit,
good word.
Michael Leppert. He's also the author of a novel we're going to discuss, The Edge of Motherland. What's your favorite Indianapolis neighborhood other than the one in which you live?
Ooh, good question. I've been my walking route lately has taken me a bit of a habit walking through Cottage Home, and I loop around to Holy Cross before I circle back through Lockerbie and back toward my home turf. So I've been walking through those neighborhoods. I really am sort of infatuated with the Holy Cross neighborhood right now.
It's beautiful.
The top of that hill there just makes me want to park it and sit for a little while. And the houses and the gardens and the flowers and all this sort of stuff and the people who are walking their dogs up there, I think they think I live there and I don't. But I see a lot of them. It's starting to be repetitive. But Holy Cross is probably the neighborhood that I'm most interested in right now.
In which state were you born?
I was born in Vincennes, Indiana.
Okay. I meant to say city, forgive me.
Yeah, but we left, and I spent the time between my second birthday and my 13th birthday in Virginia, Southwest Virginia, near the Tennessee border, and I still have a brother and a sister that live down there near Bristol.
You moved 'cause?
my dad's job, in short, he built and managed manufacturing plants. And so he hopped around to about 10 or 12 places. And this was one of the last move was the move back to Vincennes when I was getting ready to start high school.
That's such a beautiful part of the country. It's just astoundingly pretty. What did you absorb while you were there? Did you visit any battlefields? Did you spend time in like DC and places like that?
Our town was in the exact opposite corner. But the Smoky Mountains were down there. It was interesting that I grew up in two border towns. So I was on the border of Virginia, Tennessee until I was 13, and my brother and sister who are still down there live on the Virginia side, but I sort of identified with both states. And then I moved to Vincennes, which is on the river between Indiana and Illinois. And so I tell people all the time, I always had a two-state perspective on what was going on around me, because I could walk again for a couple of miles and I wouldn't just be in another neighborhood, I'd be in another state. And those states are very different from one another. And so the Virginia area is visually beautiful. It's slower than the Midwest. It was when I was younger. I think all that's evened out a little bit as time has passed and as the world has shrunk. But I remember it drove my dad crazy when we lived in Virginia, how slow the culture was. They didn't rush at anything. And of course he was a Midwesterner and he was always snapping his fingers and wanting people to come on. And I still see a little bit of that when I go home to visit, but not as much as I did 20 years ago.
What's your first political memory? I don't know how, I don't know how old you are, but I'm guessing we're relatively close to the same age. I was born in 67.
I remember, 67. I remember President Nixon's resignation speech on TV. That's the first thing that I remember. And then I remember the 76 election, the gap there when I'm between the ages of 7 and 9 or whatever that was. But I vividly remember the room I was in our house in Virginia when he resigned the presidency, sitting behind that desk and reading that speech and not having any concept what the big damn deal was, when I was a child. But whenever I see that on a clip or pops up on TV, I have an immediate flashback to where I was standing when I saw that, because I'm looking around at the grownups and they're aghast at what's going on, and,
sure.
and I don't understand any of it.
Well, so the 2-year gap, of course, you're a kid. When did you realize that politics truly, aside from it being your vocation later on in life, when did you decide, okay, this is really interesting to me?
Yeah, it really started to sink in for me when I was in high school, and I was already in Indiana, and the stress point, and this comes from President Reagan's first term. There was a big pressure down on student assistants to go to college. And again, not fully understanding all the details of that at the time, my inclination at that time was to point my finger at him and be mad at him because I thought that my opportunities had shrunk because of him. And so that's when it really got into my soul a little bit, that here in America, we get to point our fingers and we get to speak up and we get to do things that are in our own interests. And that's probably the thing where it really started for me, that if you want to be involved, you can be. And if there's something you see that you think is broken and you have an idea for a solution, then roll your sleeves up and get involved with it.
Where'd you go to high school?
Vincennes.
Was anybody famous there while you were there besides you?
Someone near there, John Gregg. I just saw John last week.
One of my favorite podcast guests. God love him.
Bet. An hour with him will exhaust you, right?
Speaking of Nixon, expletive deleted.
Yeah.
Where'd you go to college? Your undergrad?
I went to Vincennes for a while after high school and played college golf there, and then I transferred to IU and graduated.
I didn't know that you were. I'm assuming you're a good golfer.
Once was, yeah.
You don't play much anymore?
No, I do. But it's frustrating not being 18 anymore, 20 anymore.
What's your handicap?
It's a 3.4, 3.5.
Yeah, that sounds awful. Yeah. I've never swung a club, so I don't have any frame of reference, but I do remember Ed Tracy telling me that he thought I would be successful in business because I didn't play golf.
Oh, if I could have all the time I spent on golf courses back, I would take it in a heartbeat.
What about all the money you spent on liquor?
All the money I spent on liquor, I think that would probably rank above the golf thing. The golf would be right below that. Yeah, those are 1 and 2. Good call there.
I was having a meeting with Paul Okeson once at wonderful Paul Okeson at Brew, and it was after work, and he was having like I don't even know what it is. Bourbon, scotch, are they the same thing? And I was having a strawberry milkshake, and he looked at me so jealous. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Mine's better than yours.
Yes, it is.
What got you into golf?
Dad. Mom and Dad played golf when we were still in Virginia. It was something that they did. I was an athlete. I played. I was a basketball player and a football player too, and I got hooked. I remember they took me out to Glen Roki Country Club in Abingdon, Virginia, where they were members, and I was 7 years old, and I got the bug the first day I was out there. Everything about it. All the stuff, being outside, out there, all the hills and, deer running across the course and so by the time I was 9 or 10, my parents were dropping me off at the golf course on their way to work and picking me up on the way home. And that was just the way that we lived.
Which movie is funnier, Animal House or Caddyshack?
Oh my God. Animal House is probably, I don't know. That's a tough question.
That's what we do here on the podcast.
They're so applicable in life. I mean, we were talking about Otter earlier. I've quoted Otter a lot. I've quoted Ty Webb a lot too, just in different rooms.
Al Chervik?
Yeah, a little bit of that. I just quoted him the other day about getting a free bowl of soup when you buy a hat. Yeah. Those. I wish there was a way for me to track how many times I've seen both of those movies. It's triple digits, I know, but I'd love to know which one leads, because it could go either way. It's a coin toss.
Michael's referencing the fact that a few weeks ago I had Tim Matheson on the podcast. I asked him the question, and he immediately said Animal House, but then gave Caddyshack its flowers. How important is it to you, or do you think it should be in society / politics at large? I'm lucky enough to have a lot of friends in politics, a lot of people I admire on the other side of the aisle, true friends, good people. My mother was left of Khrushchev, and my dad thought Goldwater was not nearly conservative enough. How important, and someone asked me about it, and my response was, I can get along with anyone who has a sense of humor.
Yeah.
So how important is it? You hang around some smart asses.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And how important is it to, at your party, at your day, at others?
Oh, I'm drawn to that. That's not by chance. People ask me that sometimes. It comes up in conversation. How did you become friends with them? Well, they said this smart ass thing in this meeting one day, and I was like, I got to get to know that guy, or that woman. That is to me. I got a compliment one time in the halls of the State House. One of the best compliments I ever got. One of the a woman who was sitting outside of the House Republican caucus came up to me one day. Didn't know her name. She didn't know mine. And it was about halfway through a legislative session, and she said, I sit here all day and I watch you lobbyists mill around in the hallway. And I'm like, oh God, here we go. And she said, and what I've come to know is that nobody here laughs more than you do. And she just turned around and walked away. That was like, she wanted to get that off her chest. I was like, that's the nicest damn compliment I've ever heard. I'm winning because I'm laughing more than anybody else. So I have this other thing that I talk to people about, the humor thing. If you're not funny, I have a hard time believing that you're very smart. I mean, I think it's the best expression of intelligence to spend your time trying to find the levity and the humor and the brightness in any moment.
It's easy to find. I mean, if you want darkness, if you want chaos, vitriol, whatever word you want to use, it's easy to find.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it seems like it's easier to find every day than it was the day before.
Yeah.
And so when Michael Leppert needs a break from whatever pressure you're dealing with or whatever, anything that's got you frustrated, what's your go-to?
Oh, my go-to is stand-up comedy. And I watch them on repeat, and I think about, and I teach speech, and so that's what these are to me. A lot of people will call them performances. To me, they're more often conversations. Sometimes they're more specifically storytelling. If you want to talk about my favorite guys like Mike Birbiglia, who is a storyteller with jokes mixed in, but that's almost every day I will spend some time watching comedy on either YouTube or one of the or Netflix or Hulu. They all have comedy sections now, and that's what I do, and it's important to me.
Modern Family fan?
We did watch that. And it was one of those things where when it was on, we would stop. I wouldn't go looking for it, and I still do that. When it's on as a repeat or there's a clip somewhere, it's just that's
come for Gloria and stay for the rest of the
absolutely,
crew.
Absolutely.
to me, it's the funniest show ever in the history of. And I love Seinfeld, and I love the Andy Griffith Show, and Sanford and Son. A lot of the shows that we saw as kids that some probably wouldn't be on the air today.
Absolutely.
But to me, Modern Family, I watch it if I have writer's block. I watch it if I feel like I've just had a bad day and need to get away.
One thing that comes up in our conversations, because Amy is 7 years younger than me, and she didn't watch WKRP in Cincinnati, which is one of my favorite all-time shows. And I still quote that there was only like 4 seasons of that, but it's just full of stuff. And I'll start conversations. Well, Dr. Johnny Fever would have said, and she'll look at me like, "Remember, I wasn't there. I'm younger than you are."
That's so.
Les Nessman would have said, yeah, that Modern Family's a good one. Modern Families, it belongs in that top tier, I believe.
You're listening to the Leaders and Legends podcast. Our guest is Michael Leppert. He's an author. He's a lecturer. He's a professor at the Kelley School of Business. Is there a particular Hoosier leader and or legend you admire most?
It's hard for me because when I taught my first class at IU, I taught a class on public law and government relations, and it was the reason why the O'Neill School offered the class. I wasn't the first one to teach it, but they needed someone to teach it, was, the advocacy component of people who were learning government. And so that's why I was down there. But the public law component of it, we spent some time talking about the Constitution, and it's hard not to look up to someone who I wished I'd met and hadn't, but burst by. 2 constitutional amendments. I mean, who does that? And so that's a big deal. But I had an opportunity to meet Lee Hamilton, and he was someone that I have a good story about Lee Hamilton that I listened to with a different kind of intensity. When he would start to speak, I would just say, "Everybody shut up. Congressman is speaking. Everybody listen, because he's about to say something important. He may not even know it yet, but it's important." When I was working at the Utility Commission, I had a job opening, and I was getting ready to hire a new public relations person, and Lee Hamilton was one of her references. And I saw it on the list, and I was like, wow. And I was going out to lunch right in the middle of that hiring process, and the receptionist was a temporary person who was not a temporary person, but she was a young person that was working there. And she gave me a wave when I was walking by, and she said, "Hey, I got a phone message for you." And it said, "Lee Hamilton called, says he'll call back." And I took the message and started to walk out the door and saw what it said. And I turned around and I said, "Young lady, do you know who Lee Hamilton is?" And she said, "Of course, no." And I said, "Let me tell you, for a while, he was one of the most powerful people in this country and will always be one of the most important. If he calls again, interrupt me." And she looked like she had seen, the end of her career there at the Utility Regulatory Commission. But it shocked me a lot, like that WKRP difference that my wife and I was like, how can you not know who Lee Hamilton is? And I think that she went off and learned a lot about Lee Hamilton in the days that followed that.
Does Amy know turkeys can't fly?
I pounded that one into her brain. She's seen that video and knows that one. We do get annual reminders of that one. Thank God. Thank God.
I have to say, did Congressman Hamilton's recommendation carry the weight? Did his person get hired?
She absolutely did. And yeah, that was the biggest part. That was definitely the biggest part.
How important has it been to your career? I'm going to follow it up, so I'll just ask both questions at the same time. How important has it been to your career to have a mentor or mentors?
Oh,
how important is it to you as an I don't even know what to call us in our upper 50s, as a seasoned professional? How about that?
Seasoned. I love that
as
word.
A
I
seasoned,
use it a lot now.
As a seasoned professional, how important is it to you to mentor?
Okay, so part one, if you would have asked me when I was 45, and boy, those were good times, I'm not sure that I could have identified as many mentors as I can identify now that have had an impact on me. They were sort of passive. I didn't realize how much they were teaching me. I was going along and I was listening and doing stuff. And so mentorship, as I have become one as a teacher, I start to recognize where I've gotten the lessons that I'm sharing with my students now. And so that list has grown. But I have a mentor that I think about all the time. We don't talk a lot, but I think about an awful lot, and that's Bill McCarty. And I think about him. I think about his lessons that he taught me when I worked for him at the Utility Commission so often, and we're so different. We are so different. and thank God, because I needed him, and didn't even know it, and he irritated me, and he drove me crazy, and he's so soft and calm and polite, but so convinced in everything that defined his value system, and so I feel a little bit like one of his children. I look at him and I think, Dad, tell me what to do. I don't know what to do. Tell me what to do. So having a mentor that you just universally respect the way I do him is such a big deal. But that's the thing that I think features my success and my comfort as a teacher is I enjoy that so much. It's great to be a mentor without having to force it upon people. For example, let me tell you a story about that to a student. And all I'm doing is telling them a story.
Mm-hmm.
Do with it what you want. But this is the experience that I've had with the problem you're describing to me, and they keep coming back. I'm going to be with some students tonight to celebrate the book, and it's such a fulfilling part of life. Having a mentor and being a mentor is in many ways everything.
When's the first time, or let me ask it maybe a different way. Do you remember how you reacted the first time you walked into a room and you were the oldest person in it?
Oh, God.
I was at Mayor Ballard's Secretary of State announcement today. Literally knew 4 people. I think I doubled the average age. Perfectly fine.
I have a picture of this scene. I really do.
Happy for the mayor that he's connecting with young folks, and he kind of always has, but it's important for him this time, given the age, especially of his opponents in the race. But I just remember there thinking that, man, I go to events and stuff, and I just don't know people like I used to. Has that happened to you, and how did it feel?
Yeah, the biggest splash of that, I had a little bit of an experience with that when I was making some hill visits when I was in my mid-30s. I mean, if you can imagine, and if you've done any hill visits, you go out to Washington, being 35 is old. When you get up on the hill, all of those people that are running the hill, and I shouldn't say all of them, but 90% of them are 24, and they're fresh out of college. A lot of them are going to law school. You know the scene, and it's extreme. And I remember getting the advice when I first went to the hill to embrace youth. And so that was the first time when I really started, first of all, to feel old, but second of all, to recognize that I am more seasoned than the people around me. But when I went to teach my first class, and especially when I started teaching at the Kelly School, those kids that are down there, and I call them kids, and they'd probably smack me for using that word, they're also smart. They're not just young. They're also, most of them are way more driven, way more ambitious, and they're super smart. And so they
pay attention.
And oh my God.
That was the phrase I would.
Yeah. The students at the Kelly School, they are, and I teach an 8 a.m. class now, and I thought I would hate it, and I love it. Those 8 a.m. students that chose to be in an 8 a.m. class, they are sitting on the edge of their chair saying, teach me something when you walk in there. And they're questioning whether or not you're capable, and so it's not being the oldest person. I used to think, well, I'm older and wiser than you. And now it's like, I'm older and I better keep my act together because you guys are sharper than I am. And I've got to be on my game in front of all you young, energetic people.
Michael teaches at the Kelly School of Business at Indiana University. You teach in Bloomington or here?
In Bloomington.
Virtual or in person? Do you have to go down there? An 8 a.m. class in person in Bloomington? I guess you take your clubs, don't you?
They're in my trunk. I only played a few rounds. We're going to play again, I think, Labor Day week when I'm down there.
Have you made Amy a better golfer?
Ooh, God, I don't know if I can let her listen to this. If I had my...
I know you've made her a better person.
Oh, sure.
But have you made her a better golfer?
Kinder, gentler. No, maybe a little. I think we'd make each other better golfers. Yeah, we do. But if I had my preference, I would be her caddy and I would retire from playing. That's my ideal situation on the golf course would be, carrying her clubs and being her coach on the course and me not having to hit shots anymore.
You played in, I imagine, a million nonprofit / political / whatever scrambles or tournaments. Who else is good?
Oh, God.
I know Greg Ballard is really good.
Oh, is he? I didn't know he was a player.
Yeah.
That's important. That's important. That's an important thing for me to know, and embarrassing that I didn't already know that.
He shot even par one time we call it Irvington Hills. Most people know it as Pleasant Run Golf Course. And in the last round of the year, he shot a 71. And I told everybody the next day, because he was so happy, if you need to ask something of him, today is the day.
Yeah, that is.
He's going to say yes.
That is no joke. Michael Bryan's a good player. Matt Whetstone's a good player. My old partner, Chris Gibson's a good player. Greg Sturwald is an excellent player. And not just an excellent player. I like playing with him because he gives great putting advice. He's a good coach. He's a good set of eyes to watch what you're doing. And so every time I've played with him, there's been something, I walk away with something valuable. Those are good players that are out there. But I don't know the young players. Everybody I just mentioned is not in the prime of their career anymore. And there are probably young guys walking around the State House that can bomb it like the guys on TV. I don't know if anybody.
I think Michael O'Brien's just good at everything. He's just got a talent for success.
He is a White Sox fan, and they're better than they should be right now.
He and the Pope.
But that's one thing he shares with Amy is that they're both White Sox fans. So that's the one good thing you can usually gig him on, but they're playing pretty good right now.
What about Mr. Michael Solari?
I left him off. Solari and I played together a lot, and we also were in a weekly PGA tour, which I haven't got my picks in for the Open Championship this week. Thank you for bringing up Solari.
We love Mikey.
Yeah, no, he's a good player.
Okay, so who's the worst?
What's that?
Who's the worst? Who are you like, I'm going to call in sick. I just can't do it.
That's not a description of their golf. That's a description of their personality. I can play golf with just about anybody. As long as they're fun to be around.
Who's a friend of yours who you can talk smack about who desperately needs golf lessons?
Well, I had to cancel a round with him recently, and I'm gonna throw this out there and hope that he catches it. So hang on to yourself for a second. Joe Loftus.
I just saw him.
Yeah.
He's not any good. I thought he was good.
He's pretty good. But now that he's retired, which is a big deal for him, he should be killing it on the golf course. So I can't comment this year because the round we were supposed to play a couple weeks ago, I had to cancel. So I don't know what the current state of his game is. But I would love to have an opportunity to ramp his game up by about 5 or 10%.
Ever play with Jason Dudich?
No.
Phenomenal.
He's a player.
Very.
I sat behind him at graduation. That will come up in my next conversation with Mr. Dudich.
When you talk about policy and communications with your students, there are so many examples here, Indianapolis, Indiana. Forget national for a second. Is there someone who you consistently use, or more than one person you consistently use as either this is the way you do it, or this is the way you don't do it?
In Indiana.
Because we all know President Trump has his own special sui generis style of communicating, but just in terms of not just comms, but policy, like, here's a man or a woman, she really puts a lot of effort into understanding.
I found, and I had this experience before I left lobbying and went to IU, and now our passive cross down at IU. I've found Shelley Yoder to be somebody that does the work. She is a wonderful speaker, and she teaches speech, and she's a very popular speech teacher in the same department as me and Kelly. And so I didn't know that about her until I was down in Bloomington. But before we had that in common in Bloomington, when she first got elected to the legislature, I worked with her on an issue, and she was someone that impressed me very early on as someone who would do both things. One, learn the things that she knows she's going to have to explain, and then focus on being able to explain them well. And I find sort of that the combination of those two things don't happen as often as they should anymore. You and I both have our comms background and the things that we want on message delivery, we want our people to do. And some people can follow a script well and stay on message well. But oftentimes what gets lost, I think, is the depth of understanding. And so whenever you're delivering those messages, being able to also converse on them, to have an exchange about them. And I found that she was good at that right out of the gate. That was her approach. And as she's risen to lead her caucus, that's been a wonderfully valuable tool for that rather small group, to have somebody who's leading with that as their example. So she's one that I look to a lot. I think that in that same mode, and I wrote a column about these two when I was still writing columns about that stuff, Andrea Hunley, who I'm certainly excited about, in her vision of what she wants to do as a mayoral candidate in Indianapolis.
You anticipated my next question, but you finish this one and then I'll ask.
Yeah, she's someone that in a different way, I'm very interested in everything she says. than Lee Hamilton. You know, obviously Lee Hamilton was an old guy that had all this stuff. You know, when I hear her speak, I feel energized by the ideas and the enthusiasm that she has behind the things that she's thought through thoroughly. And so she's someone that I'm very drawn to.
I can't remember a time. I mean, I came of age in the early, born in 1967. So I remember Lugar as mayor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember a time where an upcoming party primary is going to be so, I'm going to just use the word compelling.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The Democratic Party, the Democratic primary, and since I'm not being paid to be a Republican, I'm going to say Democratic instead of Democrat. Democratic primary. It features, as of now, Andrea Hundley, who used to be a state senator and was principal, I think, at CFI 2.
Yep.
And Vop Osley, who's an architect and has been president of the city county council. Mm-hmm. There may be a certain prosecutor who gets involved. There may be a current mayor who decides he wants to go after Bill Hudnut's record. Do 4 terms. We don't know yet. We really won't know until next February when the filing deadline.
Yeah.
2027.
Yeah.
How do you've mentioned Senator Hundley, obviously, so I'm going to assume that's who you are, at least at this point, favoring.
Yeah.
Public policy in an urban environment is equal parts exciting and exasperating. Do you enjoy teaching that? Do you enjoy reading about it, listening, how you're going to make a city of 1 million people better? Matt Tully, rest in peace, God love him, used to always compare Indianapolis to Carmel. And when I was working for Mayor Ballard, it just made me have an aneurysm. Like, you cannot compare a city of 1 million people. But, Indianapolis, as I've said many times on the podcast, I only came downtown as a kid to watch Dick the Bruiser. There was no reason to come down for anything else. And I always feel like Indianapolis is kind of always on the edge of, are we going to teeter? Are we going to retrograde movement because of X, Y, or Z issue? Take it from there, from someone who lives in the urban core like me. I live in Fountain Square. What do you think Indianapolis' big challenges are? And what's the next mayor? We're going to assume the next mayor is a Democrat, just going to play the numbers. Mm-hmm. What's the next mayor got to do? And take more than a minute. Take some time.
What I've wanted, and what I will always want from a mayor is going to be a mayor that has a vision of our possibility, of our potential, of all the things that we could do, of all the things that we should try. It irritates me to see people use offices like mayor's offices as springboards to something else. To be a mayor, and you can attest to this, to be a mayor, to be a successful mayor, you have to be all in about being a mayor. That has got to be your purpose. And it can't be, you can't be soft, and you can't be looking at the next thing. You have to be all about doing the best thing that you can do to make your city better. One of the things that I feel coming from Senator Hundley, and the reason why I'm not just supporting her now, I'm all in and will continue to be all in on her. She is my pick. She is who I want to see as the mayor, because she represents what I want to see, which is an excitement and an optimism and an ambition for what we can be. So that's what I think all mayors should be. I think that the announcement from Mayor Jensen in Noblesville, I think that he's like that. I see that in him. And so and I saw that in Mayor Ballard. I felt like he was willing to try things and I remember when he first started putting those bike lanes in, and I wasn't riding my bike, and I thought, nobody's going to use these things. Thank God for those bike lanes. Thank God for some of the things that he did. And those were things that weren't uniformly popular, but that's what good mayors, that's what great mayors do. And that's what I want to see. And not just the mayor of Indianapolis, but any mayor. But because I live in Indianapolis, I see that potential coming from her. And that's why I want to see her be the next mayor.
Plus, she has Elise Schrock on her side. I want Elise in my foxhole 24/7.
So do I. You talk about Amy. I don't know if I'd cross Elise either.
But you look at it, and I worked in the mayor's office from 2008, 2010. So not very long, really, and increasingly a long time ago. What are you going to do about the streets. There's only so much you can do. What are you going to do about? I don't understand why anybody wants to be a mayor.
Are you trying to set me off? Is
yes,
that what you're doing?
I am. What are you going to do about crime? What are you going to do about all these things that people want? Because because there's two things. People want it until they get it, and then they complain about the fact that they're getting it. And I could tell you that because I live in Fountain Square, and half of it's torn up. And I had someone complain to me about it. I said, you're damn lucky the city's spending the money here. There's 100 other places in this city or county the city could be spending this money. You go into an office like that, you want to be effective. You want to leave a legacy, not just a political legacy, but a legacy for the city. Tell me how to do it.
One of the things is making it the most important thing making it as important as it should be. You know, if you talk about mayors being successful, we talk about this rhetorically and we giggle about it when we say it, is if you want to be a good mayor, make sure the trash gets picked up and the streets get plowed when it snows and all that sort of stuff. The roads in Indianapolis are not just horrendous. It's absurd how bad they are. It is so irritating and angering to me every time I drive, and I walk when I'm in town more than I drive. And then I drive during the school year down to a town like Bloomington, who has streets that you would think are paved in gold by comparison to the streets that we live on here in the capital city. And I think it is just absurd how bad they are. And I could go on and on.
But why are they so bad? Mayor Ballard did rebuild Indy from the Citizens transaction. I forget the exact amount of cash, 400 and some million. And no offense to him or anyone else, it doesn't look like the streets are any better at all. Now, the big dig is huge. I mean, what they're doing with the Citizens is doing when the engineering with the sewage and the flooding, getting rid of, what the hell's the name of that hospital that they got rid of? It's obviously not Wishard. That's the tall one on Meridian.
Oh, you're talking about
Winona.
Oh, Winona.
Stuff like that. I mean, he did all these things. He did a ton of good things with it, as any mayor would do, but it was important to him. But if you drove around Indianapolis, the roads, especially like on the west side, going to the working man's friend, you'd have no idea that we spend any money on roads. And I'm trying to figure out, how do you blame the mayor for that? Or do you?
One of the reasons why I blame the mayor, I'm just going to say that. And he's not in control of all those things. It's not all Mayor Hogshead. It wasn't all Mayor Ballard before him. The problem that I have is that it's an emergency. Treat it like one. Quit acting like it's not as bad as it is, because it's absurd how bad it is. It's I hear from people all over this country about how bad the roads are in Indianapolis. It's not some little thing. It's a devaluing of the lifestyle in Indianapolis. It's that bad. It's not just here's this bad pothole that I happen to hit on this one obscure route that I take to this one obscure store. It's all over town. It's like driving in I don't even have anything to compare it to. If they were gravel roads, they'd be smoother. And my problem is that we should be talking about it every day. This is something that government is designed to handle this and treat it like it is government's responsibility. I love the fact that the city county council is talking about coming up with additional funding to do something about it. How can we possibly oppose doing something about it? And so but
I'm guessing, just real quick, as someone who has a hell of a lot more state house experience than I do, that you couldn't defend, and I usually don't ask questions like this, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to get the answer I'm fishing for here. Mm-hmm. You can't defend how the General Assembly treats this city.
Oh, no. And
it's almost to the level of being shameful.
Yeah, absolutely. And my personal experience with that was when we redid the bridges on the North Split and all the stuff that was going on up there. That was the opportunity to really look at the city of Indianapolis comprehensively. It was ridiculous for them not to pay attention to the ideas that were brought up by people on better ways to do that project in and of itself. And while we're doing that, let's make sure that we're doing all of the things that need to be done, not just this one little thing. And when I say one little thing, I mean 3 years of demolition and all the stuff that's gone on with that. And it needed to be fixed and it needed to be updated. But why are we acting like it's some silo? That was a huge project and a huge opportunity to have a fresh look at what we do in the city of Indianapolis. And it was everybody took the easy way out, in my opinion. And it wasn't just the mayor. It was all the interested parties from the state house to our members of Congress, all the way around the block on that.
I'll give you 30 seconds. Solve Indianapolis's crime problem, or solve the perception of Indianapolis's crime problem.
The perception is not, to me, in 30 seconds, I think that people have a misperception. I spend all of my time downtown. I'm out at strange hours because I'm old and I wake up when I'm on the street at 4 or 5 in the morning walking around the city. And there has not been a time when I've been scared of being downtown. It's silly for people to have that narrative that Indianapolis is some sort of scary place. That's the first thing. We need to be talking about it more honestly. That's the first thing. The second thing is, it's just like the roads. If you think that we have this problem, do something about it. My idea after the pandemic, which is the setting of the book, is that if we've got I remember going to DC after the crack epidemic. They had police standing on every corner in that city. For 2 years, they had police officers in uniform standing on every corner of that street. If it is a crisis, treat it like one. If it's not, then make sure that you're communicating to people why everything's okay. A combination of those two things is going to be the solution to the problem.
We have a few more minutes left with author, lecturer. Is that a good lecturer? I mean, that's not your title, but that's your...
That is my title. They call me professor.
They call you professor, but you're a lecturer. You don't have a terminal degree?
No.
So you're like me, a BA and an MA.
I'm in my senior lecturer promotion year right now. I'll be a senior to match my age when I'm back here next year.
Michael Leppert, let's talk about your book before we get to the 5 questions. The book is called The Edge of Motherland. It's a novel. It's not your first novel. Very fetching picture on the back.
Fetching, good word.
I may say. What pushed you into writing? Because all of us who do politics or PR or whatever, we all have to write. Well, what pushed you into writing this novel and others? Leslie Weidenbender, who sat in that very spot. Motherland is a poignant story about love, friendship, identity, and the music, poetry, and places that shape us. This is from Leslie, who's as smart as it gets.
Yeah.
Tell us about the book and what drove you to become a novelist.
I wanted to tell a story of something that I experienced in the State House, which led to my first long version storytelling venture with Flipping the Circle. And that was a fictionalized version of something that actually happened. And so a lot of people, I think, look at a pure fictional novel that this new one is, and they think if you had a story you were tracking, that must have been easier. Oh my God, it was so much harder to have to try and stay true to what actually happened in my first novel. With The Edge of Motherland, I wanted to communicate, and there was a dearth of storytelling after the Spanish flu pandemic. A lot of people theorize, a few in particular theorize, that people didn't want to write stories about the Spanish flu pandemic because we were so ashamed of the way we had behaved. When I first started planning to write Motherland, it was early in the pandemic of 2020, and I wasn't sure how I was going to tell the story, but I knew I wanted to tell a story that would, years later, communicate what it felt like to be living through that difficult time. And so over the course of about 18 months, the story started to develop in my head. And then I wrote it all in the summer of 2023. But the goal of it was to make sure that storytelling about what it felt like was being done, as opposed to just writing a bunch of nonfiction reporting and data and all that sort of stuff, which we have no shortage of. But for people to be able to pick up a book and say, what did it feel like to go through that? Well, here's a book that will explain what it felt like in a very common place, like a Midwestern city like Indianapolis, during the first few months, and sort of the decision-making and then the feelings that grew out of that isolation and that uncertainty about what tomorrow brings.
Do you have a favorite novel?
Do I have a favorite novel? It competes between Bluebeard and Turtles All the Way Down.
By
Bluebeard by Vonnegut, of course, and Turtles All the Way Down by my guy John Green.
I did a podcast at the Vonnegut Museum. It's been 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah.
What does Vonnegut's writing mean to you?
Oh,
because he's really the reason I ask that is because I'm not saying he's had a renaissance, as you would say, but it's clear that his I think, based on reading, his influence is growing.
Yeah. Well,
in the culture, in literary culture, and in popular culture.
I see that. Yeah. There aren't many writers the two, and I've already mentioned them both, in my library, my go-to, if I'm on a desert island, what do I take? I take all the books that John Green's written, and I take all the books that Vonnegut's written, and that's enough for me. The novels that those two write, I don't want to end. If Bluebeard was something that took a year to read, I'd read it. If Turtles or Fault in Our Stars or his new book that's coming out, the Hollywood Ending that's coming out in the fall, John Green books, and that is what, and when you read this novel, I know you're not a novel reader, when you read this novel, I've had people ask me about this, why is there so much dialogue? Why is dialogue your vehicle for telling this story? And it's because of John Green, and it's because of how I feel when I read a Vonnegut story. I feel like I'm having a conversation with him. I'm thinking about the things that he's saying in the book while he's saying them, and I feel like asking questions when every chapter is over. I want to talk more about this or more about that. And so that's the style that I'm drawn to. All the books that I've read from both of those writers are books that I was sad when it was over.
So many novels that have, and I'll confess, I've not read a novel since graduate school. Beowulf, if you count that as a novel. But
for everyone out there, he's constantly got a book under his arm, and it's constantly either a biography, a memoir, or it's history based. And so it's always important to see what he's reading.
I don't need to read a novel to experience warring and whoring. I can just read about the Tudors, and I'm perfectly set. So many great novels, and you talked about the setting of yours. The setting of which the background is a period of tragedy.
Yeah.
Tale of Two Cities, For Whom the Bell Tolls, right. All Quiet on the Western Front. Yep. The list goes on and on. How do you think that is a necessary, that people are drawn to that sort of foundation? It was the best of times, it was the worst of times?
Yeah, I do. I think that the way that I write will always be some version of this. And this book is very much like this. The book that I'm writing right now is very much like this. That if you read this story, when you're done, you might ask yourself, wait a minute, did this happen or was this pure fiction? And the reason why is that I try to create the setting as it exactly was. In this book, all the weather forecasts are consistent with what the weather of the day was, what happened at the Big Ten tournament, the marches to the governor's residence, all those things that happened in early 2020 are reported factually. And so when someone might pick this book up 5 years from now and read it, they're going to say, yeah, but did this really happen? Well, the setting was absolutely, I spent a lot of time in research to make sure that it was exactly correct. And so people can read this story and be able to say, this may not have happened with these characters, but it definitely fit into the exact things that were going on in that moment. And so I think that it's important to capture the moment and be able to communicate what lives were actually like in that moment. And so that's the style of novel that you're going to get from me.
Where can we buy your book?
Amazon, of course. Amazon, and Audible.
No local bookstores here? I know there's one on College.
They will be in bookstores, I believe, in August.
Okay. Indy Reads Books is another friend of ours.
That's where I want it to be, and I want it to be, I'm drawing a blank on the place. Whispering Shelf is the one that I walk by all the time. I might hand deliver them down there and beg them just to put it on the shelf and not sell any of them. I just want them to be on the shelf so that I can walk by there and say, hey, there's my book on the shelf.
We have reached the point on the Leaders and Legends podcast where we ask the same 5 questions of all of our guests. Are you aware of these questions?
I once was, but I haven't reviewed them, so you're going to catch me a little bit cold.
What was your first job?
Paperboy.
What was your first concert?
Ozzy Osbourne and Motley Crue. Oh, what a great show.
Oh, late 80s?
Bark at the Moon tour.
Bark at the early 80s and Bark at Jakey Lee.
First tour first tour for Jakey Lee, yeah. And Shout Out the Devil tour for Motley Crue. So they were
my favorite Crue album.
Yeah.
If you could suggest any book for someone to read, you can get a novel and you can get a nonfiction because you're Michael Leppert. Which book would you recommend?
For anyone to read, I'd probably have them read All the Light We Cannot See. Then let's see, nonfiction. Let me think of a nonfiction. I'll say Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run.
Number 4, if you could witness any event in history, be there in person as it happens, which event would you choose?
VE Day.
You want to be in London, New York?
I want to be in New York.
Next to last question, because I have one more for you. If you could have dinner with anyone living today, 2 hours off the record just to chat, whom would you choose?
John Green.
He didn't live that far from you, does he?
No.
You see him pretty often?
And I feel like I've invited him to dinner before, but I'm doing that now. This shouldn't be that hard.
I've never had him on the podcast, and I'd love to.
Oh, that seems like a deficiency on your part. I think that he's got.
I don't know him.
He's got a new book coming out. So when his novel comes out, he's going to be doing the tour. So you should get him while he's weak.
He asked one last question that I asked of the two people who I'm going to mention in the question, and I've never asked anyone else. Does the Democratic Party need more Eric Holcombs, and does the Republican Party need more Joe Donnellys?
I'm going to say no to both.
You have been listening to Leaders and Legends, a podcast presented by Veteran Strategies, an Indiana-based public relations enterprise. We are also a federally certified, veteran-owned small business and registered with the state of Indiana and the city of Indianapolis. As always, all our podcast interviews are dedicated to the legacy and generosity of P.E. McAllister. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I want to thank, obviously, Kelly, because she's wonderful, for reaching out.
Yes.
Thank you for contributing not only your literary skills, but your thoughts to the city, because I know you care. We all care about this city so much.
You do.
I'm going to give you one last opportunity. You're on a desert island. Who you taking? Kip 2 or Amy Levander?
Oh, that. I'm a little offended by the question. That's why she's not here with me today. Yeah, of course it's Amy Levander. Now, Amy might pick Kip
instead of you.
That way the three of us could be there. Yeah, I'll pick her and she can pick him.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for listening to Leaders and Legends, brought to you by Veteran Strategies Incorporated. If you want to contact us about this program or our menu of public relations services, please send us an email at robert@veteranstrategies.com. That's robert@veteranstrategies.com.